You and I together right now, we're going to solve a problem that most people are not even aware of. And if that's your case, that is a huge problem. What is this problem? Imagine this. Wherever you are, you have an idea, you have a desire, you have a goal, and then you have an image about how it would look like if you can get it done. You have a number, or maybe you have a position, or maybe you have an KPI for your success, which you want to have in half a year, maybe in 3 months or in a year. Now, in between, there are many processes. There are many players that participate in between. Creative thinking, emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, your thoughts, your emotions. And if these players in between, which are meant to help you to elaborate a plan so that you can get where you want to get, so that you can make it to happen, if all these players in between don't have rules and they're just playing randomly, they're just running, then all these processes which are processed within your mind are going to overheat your thinking process, and then you end up in procrastination, self-doubt. You start to think that maybe you are not enough, you don't have what it takes, or that whatever you want to get, whatever you want to make happen, you're not worthy of it. And that's a huge problem. And the problem is that in between is your mind that is so powerful. And if you could just have a couple of tools or a framework that will help you to learn how to use your mind, this process becomes so much easier, so much clearer, because you start to have rules and principles how to organize these processes. And after I help someone to manage their thoughts and their minds in a clear and more efficient way, they say, "Oh my God, it's been so many years and I didn't have even the smallest idea of how much power I do have, but I didn't know it. I was just misusing it in such a way that wasn't efficient. And rather than helping me to get where I want to get, it was working against me. And I don't want that for you." And that's why the title of this video is How to Use Your Mind. Because I assure you, most of us don't know how to think. Yeah, we can think a little bit, like walking. If you just look, you're a child, so you're looking around and you just started to walk. Well, then you started to run. But if you want to become a professional runner, then you've got to really pay attention to every stage of your technique while you're learning how to run. Many people can run, but only few are professional at running, and they become experts, they become champions at running. The same thing is with your mind. Everybody can think a little bit, but if you really want to use your mind at its best, at its most potential, then you've got to go a little bit into this specifics. And that's what we're going to do today. It's not going to be very complicated, I assure you. Everybody can do that. We can go much deeper, but we're not going to do that. This is a simple framework in 3 stages that is going to make your life so much easier, and is going to give you a bag of tools that you can use so that you can use your mind in the most efficient way. That's what we're going to do today. So welcome to Exploraself MBA, Master Wisdom and Leadership for Business and Life. My name is Alexandr, and I'm going to be with you today during this masterclass. What I want you to do is to grab a piece of paper and a pen and take some notes. I would like you to participate. And maybe you have something to add. Maybe you want to make it even better. Or maybe you have a question, so that you take notes. That's very, very important. You don't just watch, but you participate. Why is that so important? Because imagine that you go to watch a soccer session of players playing soccer. And if they're just randomly running on the field, you say, guys, what was the point? Can you please make sure that you know why you are running on the field? Well, what's the goal? What's the score? What's the point of all of this? Let me know, because otherwise you'd be bored. You'd just be looking at all these players playing left and right, and that's not interesting, right? Because what's the point? So the same thing is participating and taking notes. It's not just watching how we're going to manage this framework, but you are in the game. You are participating so that you can go through experience, not just taking this information, which I'm going to share with you, but you can go through an experience so that you can feel it and start to think it already before you get to the end, before you understand it fully. All right. So the art of thinking rationally. Why is that so important to think? And then we're going to dive into the system and to the framework that I'm going to share with you. Progress is impossible without change. And those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So this ability to know what to change and how to change our minds is very important. Otherwise, there is no progress. If there's no progress, then how you're going to get to that desire that you have, to that image, to that ideal scenario that you have for yourself or for your business. You might have a huge amount of information. You have so much knowledge. You might be reading books and watching others, but that is not going to make you a professional runner just because you watch how do people run professionally. That might give you some inspiration, but you've got to be in the middle of the game. That's very important. So observe, control, design. This is just an introductory framework. It's not the framework itself. Now, OCD, it reminded me, it just happened casually that it's like, oh, observe, control, design, OCD. What's OCD? It's obsessive compulsive disorder. It's a disorder marked by uncontrollable and recurring thoughts, repetitive and excessive behaviors, or both. But that's not what we're going to learn today. But the OCD stands for observe the players, control the rules, design the game. So we're going to beat the OCD with a new OCD. Observe the players, control the rules, design the game. You might say, okay, what are the players? What are the rules? And what's the game? The game is how to elaborate a strategic plan between where you are and the end goal that you have for yourself. So this is the game. In the middle, in the between, there are many players, emotions, thinking, being creative, being tough, being disciplined, being flexible. And sometimes seemingly we need all of them, but sometimes we need one, sometimes we need more the other. So we got to figure out also some rules. What are the rules? When do I have to rely more on my emotions, and when is the moment to be more critic? When I have to allow myself to be more dreamy, to be more inspired, and when is the time to be more realistic? So we've got to figure out also some rules, and each of us has some personal rules. That's why this framework is something that you can start with, but then you can modify. You have to modify it and make it for yourself to make it functional. And the most important player in today's masterclass is your thinking, your mind. All right. So we can look at this from two perspectives: how to achieve great things and avoid getting stuck in overthinking, impulsive decision making, and self-doubt. Where we can look at it from a different perspective: how to use our thinking process in the most efficient way, transforming your mind into a performance machine. So from one side is how can I get away from something, but from another perspective, how can I get closer? So you already now see a little dance between the same objective, but with two different perspectives. One is how can I get away from impulsive decision making? How can I get away from overthinking? But how can I get closer to something? I haven't planned to talk about these two perspectives, but now we can look. There are two perspectives. Sometimes even switching this perspective, which we're going to learn in today's masterclass, is essential. It's about the same objective, but different perspectives. And according to how do you bring the perspective, that is going to decide how you're going to think about what to do, how to do, when to do, and where to go. So we're going to split it in three parts. So this masterclass is going to be split in three parts. One is the input, the process, and the output. The input, the process, and the output. I invite you to look at your mind as something like this. Something comes in inspiration, ideas, plans, desires, imagination, whatever. Each comes in, an image, an information, some knowledge, a masterclass you watch, you talk to someone, there is an exchange of information, you read, you apply. So there is so much input. You can hear, you can see, you can read, you can create, generate something. And that's the input. Then you have the process. Where do I put this information? How do I organize it? In such a way that I get done the idea that I have at the beginning. Let's think for a very simple example. You have a product for your clients, and you know that the delivery, for example, process is very complicated. Probably you are already aware of it. And you know, or you probably observe that 20% of your time goes into delivering the product, because there are not processes established so that the process goes smooth with the minimal participation from your side or from someone that you have put in charge. Now, the idea is clear. I want to make this process more efficient. But how? Where do I have to start? Who should I ask? Am I able to implement that change? How much is going to take this change? How much time? Am I sure that this is the right modification? So you want to bring into your, as glasses for yourself during today's masterclass, input, process, output. And you always want to make sure that you know what's the input. Where from have you taken the information that you are processing? Who have you listened to? What made you to do that research, or to listen to someone, or to pay attention to something? What made me? So there's the input. There is the process. How much time do you spend into the processing? How do you process? Are you processing, or just simply putting things together and you hope that this thing is going to make something tasty and efficient? And the output. What is the output that I'm looking for? So the whole process includes these three phases: input, process, and the output. So we're not going to go into too many details. We're going to keep it simple so that you can start to implement today. So we're not going to go into the spiritual or into the soul's desires and the trauma and how is all these, how's your brain functioning between the upper brain, the lower brain, and the midbrain, and so on and so forth. We're not going to go into all of that, not even into this. We're going to keep it very simple. Input, process, get it done, and how to put all these phases together. Some people really struggle with the input. They really pay too much attention to so many other things, and they bring so much information into their heads, into their minds. It's overwhelming. Then they don't know what to do with it. Some people struggle with the thinking. Right at the moment when they start to think, emotions kicks in, and they're like, oh my God, I'm not smart enough. And some people struggle with how to get it done. What's the specific result that I'm looking for? What specifically I want to change in my business or in my life? And I assure you, so many people pay so much attention sometimes to the input: reading, listening, watching, reading, listening, watching, even reflecting, even thinking, organizing, but then they don't get it done because they haven't specifically made clear from themselves, what exactly am I looking for? You might say, that's not me, I have it. Well, if I ask you right now to write down 100 specifics about the outcome that you're looking for, even if it's a midterm or a short term, maybe it's a week goal or a month goal, but by the 7th or the 10th out of the 100, people stop because they don't know exactly what is that. I have an idea, a feeling about what it would look like, what would be the best outcome, but I don't know specifically how does it look for me or in my business. And that's very important. We have to solve it today. So let's focus now on the input. Intentional versus habitual. What is this? If you really want to take your thinking to another level and you really want to become a great thinker and to use your mind for the best in the process, you've got to make sure that you know what is coming in and where does it come from. Now, there are two sides. One is habitual and the other one is intentional. What was the habitual? The habitual is wide. I look all over the place, around, social media, reading, watching others is wide. It's not focused. There is not clear the outcome. So usually if you don't have a clear outcome, then also the habitual input is wide. It's unfiltered. So some of you pay attention to something and then maybe you don't have the product, but you're already learning sales. Then maybe you're reading a book about networking, but you haven't get there yet. You haven't gotten there yet. So you're all over the place and you're not paying attention to, am I filtering? Or I just, whatever books comes and I see maybe an ad that somebody is advertising a book. Wow, he said this is an amazing book. I need it. Then you read it. And then you spend them out and it's like, yeah, but I haven't moved from closer to where I want to get. It's very important to read. I'm not saying it's not important to read. I'm an avid reader. But is this habitual? Do I like just the cover of the book and I just buy it and read it? Next one, exposure. We are very exposed to so much information, ads, things outside, noise, people talking, stories. So we're exposed. We can take that away and that's not the point. But we have to be aware of the fact that we are exposed to so much information. And if the input is bombarded with information, this is not the way to use your mind at its best. Next one, curiosity. Be careful. I'm very curious. I'm a very curious person. But if your curiosity is taking away all your time and you're not a teenager, you are an adult and you want to get things done, as we said in the beginning, is true. We have to maintain a spirit of curiosity. But if you're always curious about everything, no problem. Enjoy it. But you can't expect to get things done if you're only curious. Curious and curious and curious. And that can really distract you and overheat the thinking process because you're curious about everything. So again, you've got to watch, look, observe the players, manage the rules so that you can design the outcome. So you've got to put so you have a piece of paper and your pen right in front of you right now, right? So write them down. I know you can pause the video, but I want you to write them down. How wide is my input? Is it unfiltered? How much unfiltered is it? How much of the information comes and I don't filter it? Sometimes we have to say, no, thank you. I don't want to engage in this conversation because I don't have time for it or it's not valuable for me. Sometimes we have to. Let's be real. Sometimes it's rude to say so, but sometimes it's necessary. Habits. Sometimes we habitually do things without even realizing that how much time does it take and how much energy does it take. We engage in conversations where we do things which are not really necessary or valuable to us, and we do that. Now, this is not the way to manage your input into your brain, into your mind. This is habitual. We want to get away from the habitual and we want to move into the next one. What is the next one? Before we move to the next one, write down at least one thing for the wide, for the unfiltered, for the exposure, for the curiosity, and for the habits. One thing that you know that you've got to change it, that you have to start to pay a little bit more attention. And maybe you're not aware of it. While you're going to write it down now, you are going to pay attention to that. What are the habits that I do have in my life? Write down one. And if you don't have 10, I've got always more than 10 that I'm working on. So I assume that you at least have one that you know, and ask yourself, how am I going to get rid of it? How am I going to replace it? What with? And exposure. Am I exposing myself to too many sources, to too much information? How do I do that? Am I paying attention to so many other things, but I don't know why? And if it's yes, write them down so that you can start to become aware of it. What is the way that I suggest you to do? Intentional. This is linear. Intentional input is I'm going to intentionally seek sources, people that are going to bring that value that I'm looking for. Or I'm going to look for specific people to whom I can give and add value. Those people, I will get better at it. Then I will enlarge if I decide so. Observational, you observe. You pose the question and then you observe. How have I behaved the last week? What were my habits? How was I performing in the morning or in the evening or in the afternoon? You observe things. You don't just go through them, but you observe. If you're still watching this masterclass now, observe, how do I feel while I'm watching it, while I'm trying to do some work? Is it making me feel a little bit overwhelmed because, oh, it's so complicated and I don't want to do it? Why? Observe how do you feel and observe what do you think about. Observe about the moment when you clicked on this thumbnail or this video. Observe yourself. What was going on that made me to click and watch this video? Next one is intentional. Intentional input. I'm going not only to be linear, I might allow myself to be a little bit wider, but I'm going to intentionally look for information, inspiration, or ideas. I'm going to do that intentionally. Am I? This is a good question. I do have some questions for you at the end of this, and during and also at the end of this masterclass, which if you answer, then I'm sure that after it you'll say, wow, I should have and could have done this much earlier and much better, but it's good that you can do it right now. Valuable and prioritizable. Valuable. Is this adding value or is this just satisfying my curiosity, which is always burning within me? I really enjoy watching about things about the cosmos and the universe and about stars. That's amazing. But if I spend 3 hours every other day into that, but that's not something that adds extreme value to my life, so that it's not helping me to multiply the value that I have so that I can share it with others, then probably I've got to discipline myself into how much curiosity am I feeding while I'm practicing and I'm doing it. That's so essential and important. And we forget a little bit about the fact, and we start to think that if we are adults, then we're good, we're ready. And I'm in charge. I can do whatever I want. I can watch as many documentaries as I want. No, we've got to discipline ourselves. And prioritizable. What's the priority? This is also very important. For example, networking or how to present yourself. It's a very important skill. Is this a priority number one or not? Because if it is not a priority number one, then you can get to the priority number two, priority number three. And you also have to rearrange sometimes things. Sometimes you think that this is important, building a website is important. But first, you haven't also made clear for yourself, who am I serving? Who are my perfect clients? What is the specific problem I'm going to solve for them? So it's very important to have a website, very important, probably. And you do that and you spend so much time and energy, but that's not the priority number one. And probably maybe it is the priority number one. And if it is, ask yourself why. And imagine yourself, if I could have get it already done by tonight, what would be the next one? Oh, for the next one, I actually don't need this one that I'm doing now. So probably I gotta make a change. Probably the next priority is actually the priority number one for now. Then the next one. So we have these two ways of input. One has its roots in fear and doubt and fear of missing out and perfectionism and distraction. This is the habitual. We are distracted. We allow ourselves to be distracted by shiny things, by great scenarios, by dream ideas, which are very close to our heart. And we say, yeah, that's exactly what I also want for my business. Well, that's amazing. Are you sure this is not distracting you? So while you are looking at others and you want to have what they have, or to also grow and be successful as they are in your nation, your industry, Is this distracting or is this inspiring? Because if it is distracting, then probably you have to do it a little bit less. And if it's inspiring, then ask yourself, do I really need to be even more inspired? Or probably it's time to start to work. And because I already have enough inspiration for today, and thinking that more inspiration is going to save the day, are you sure about this? So while you are looking for inspiration and you're looking around, make sure that you're not actually in a destructive modality, where you're not in the perfectionist modality. How can I make it perfect? But you're not doing it. You think about how can I make it perfect, and you're not doing it. Then you assume you've done it, but then how can I make it even perfect? But wait a second, you haven't done it yet. So here's the trick with the perfectionism, that we assume that we have already achieved the next version, and we start to think about, but what would be the next version? Okay, let's assume that I have done it. What would be the next version? It doesn't work this way. You're assuming. This is crazy. It's la la land. And then like, oh, I'm a perfectionist. Not, you're not. You just like to think about things, and you're a little bit lazy to jump on train and to go to the next station. And then I'll take a walk in the next train, and that's how you get to the destination. Sometimes perfectionism is not a problem. Being lazy probably could be. Now that's also, I'm not saying that's easy, but sometimes you got to make sure what's the input. There's a fear of missing out. It's like, I'm going to miss it. AI is taking all over the world and I'm behind. Okay. Have you mastered? Are you super clear about what you want to achieve and how are you going to use that AI? Because I can bring you 10 softwares that are amazing. What are you going to do with them? I'm not telling you that you shouldn't. Just ask yourself and bring the answers up. Doubt. I'm doubting myself. That's why I'm all over the place, because I want to solve my doubt, thinking that the more input I bring into the system, the doubt is going to go away. No, doubt is going to be taken away when you make it happen, and then you look and say, oh, I haven't done, I don't have reasons to doubt it. No, I don't know how to do it next. Okay, I'll start doing it. So that's how I get rid of doubt. That very easy. Not by assuming and thinking even more of it. You've done some reflection. You've got a couple of things that you have to work on. Do them. And fear. When we're just fearful, that, again, it's much deeper. We can go much deeper into it. Why do I feel the fear? What was the source of that fear? And is this fear or just simple anxiety? 90% of the time it's anxiety and it's not fear. And why? Because you haven't done it. And once you do it, then it's going to get away. And you just embrace the principle, and you take these principles with you, put into the shoulder morning to night, and it's all good. So we can go deeper, but we're going to move forward. So the habitual, these are the roots of the fruits of the habitual input. Now there's another one. Before we go to the next one, do I choose or does it just happen? So ask yourself this question. Do I choose or does it just happen? Because sometimes we start to confuse the fact that, it's not me that I started to bombard my system with so much information. It's the destiny. It should have happened. Well, wait a second. Am I choosing? Because if you couldn't choose, then you wouldn't have that ability, but you have the ability to choose. Then why do you have this ability? Because you got to choose, rather than saying, oh, it just happens. Oh, that's easy. So yeah, it's a dance between, but mostly you've got to choose to let myself a little bit freer and to see what my inspiration tells and what my inner voice is. Absolutely. But today we're about the mind, so we're going to keep it very systemic and within the framework. Now, the next one, which is the intentional, linear, observational, intentional, valuable, and prioritizable. These are the roots and the fruits of this kind of input. Direction. Where is my direction? Where am I going? What are my intentions? Are my intentions clear? I want to get better at this. I want to achieve that. Are my intentions clear or not? Values. So when you have intention, when you have values, these are my values, and somebody is a great teacher or a sales master, but the way they do it, you say, you're overstepping my values. That's a little bit off. I'm not going to do this. How to cheat there or that, that's over my values. I'm not going to do that. Resources and priorities. So you look at resources around. You're not looking around getting scared, feeding your doubt. You're looking around for models, for examples, so that you can use some principles for yourself. So you look at the resources which are around you. Look at the tree. You look at the tree, and I always have this principle for myself. You put a seed in the ground, you give sun, not that I give, but the sun is there, the water is there, it just grows. It's going to become a tree. Why? Because a seed does what a seed's supposed to do. So if I make sure that I got clear on what's the seed, the spiritual seed that I want to make it happen in the physical world, then I've got to make sure what's the seed, what are my intentions, and what's the direction, and what are the resources, where am I going to get those resources which are going to allow this habit, this seed, this idea to grow and to manifest into the physical world. Because it starts here, it's invisible, but then it just happens. This is the way, and these are the fruits and the roots of this way of the input, intentional. So we have intentional versus habitual. So here's the question for your intentional. I choose, I seek, I observe, I find. I choose, I make the choice. Next month, half a year, 5 years, 10 years, according to where you are right now. I choose. So you got to make the decision. What's valuable to you? I seek. You look for it. You're not just waiting. You're not just allowing yourself to be exposed to all kind of information. I seek, I ask. Can I ask you please? Can I ask you for a little bit of help? Can you please explain me a little bit more of this? Can you find a free material? Can I buy this book about this specific skill? It's about communication. I want to communicate my vision for the investors. Okay, I know that my communication is not really good. Now, while you are getting crazy about finding investors, what about your communication? Have you mastered in how to say it in 60 seconds about what's your business about? Have you mastered it? No, go and do it. I observe. Look at others who have already done it, so you can learn something from them. They are the giants that have already done it. So we learn, but you gotta observe. And observe also your trajectory, your growth. When was I performing at my best, and when was I at my lowest, and why? And then you find. And then again, you choose, you seek, you observe, and you will find. All right. So this is the framework, the input. Now we're going to get into in the middle, into the process. So we've got the habitual and we've got the intentional. So you have the habitual way. It's wide, is not focused, is not linear, is about you just happen to be exposed to. And then there's the other way, which is the intentional. It has a direction. It has a purpose. You have priorities, you have goals, and you have values. So you've got to first make sure that all the channels that allow you or allow your mind to receive information, even from within or whether it's from the outside, you want to ask yourself, is this intentional or is this habitual? As long as you just let everything come in, then it's much harder when you get into the next phase. And the next phase is the process. In the process, we're going to learn two ways of processing. One is reductive and the other one is deductive. What is this? Once the input, something came in, let's take an example. Let's look at building a website. Let's take it very simple. So look at the input and you've looked others. What are some styles that you like to? You know your business, you know your mission, you know the product, you know the problem that you solve. Now you want to make something that is going to serve the purpose of building your website. I want this website not just to look good, not just to imitate the input. I want it to serve to get things done. What is the purpose? But before I get to the purpose, I've got to understand how do I process all the information that came in? And let's assume that it's intentional. You've made some criteria for yourself. What kind of information am I looking for? Who am I going to observe? What are the other websites which are working well? So you do that intentionally. And you don't allow yourself to be distracted by too many versions and options. You get confused, then you don't get it. You don't get it done. So in the process, we have the reductive and deductive. What is this? Reductive and deductive. Look at it in this way. Many details, many things, they gotta come to a conclusion. Or you have a conclusion. Okay, this is the priority I have to focus on the next month. This is a conclusion. And you've got to disassemble it into details. Where I'm gonna start, what I'm gonna do this day, this week. So we have reductive, many details to a conclusion, or deductive. From one principle, from one model, how am I going to transform it into enough details for me so that I can step into the next stage, which is getting things done. So details to conclusion, conclusions to details. Have these two ways of thinking and be aware of it. Am I, and let's look at the next slide. Am I making conclusions to conclusions or details to even more details? Here is the trap where most people fall in when it comes about to think more efficiently. They've got a conclusion, and out of that conclusion, they build another conclusion and another conclusion, and they become masters of conclusions and ideas, seemingly masters of wisdom. They're not, because they talk about 𝐌𝐨𝐫𝐞 𝐕𝐢𝐝. That's not practical. These just conclusions. So then what they do with those conclusions? Where others extremely obsessed with details, more details. Oh, if I found more details, then I can find even more details, and I feel proud about finding in more details. All right, are you a detective, or do you want to find the thief? Because if you're just obsessed with being a detective, that's a game, playing being detective. But you gotta get the bad guy, you gotta get things done, you gotta get some results. The same thing goes with the thinking. Am I trapped in conclusions to conclusions or details to more details? Because we have to learn these two ways. Conclusions to details and details to conclusions. How do we do this? Practical to wisdom and wisdom to practical. Here is another that I want you to remember. If you want to use your mind at its best, then you always got to have two ways of processing. You've got some reflection, some wisdom there. Somebody shared some wisdom, or you build it. Boom. How can I transform it into a practical world? How can I apply it? Otherwise, on the other side, last month I've been working intensively with this. Let me reflect about it. And out of all that experience that you've got, what's the conclusion? What's the wisdom that I've got out of it? And not even a month, even a week, or sometimes even at the end of the day. Always build these two pillars at the same time, wisdom and practical, so you don't get lost into the practical, but at the same time, you don't become a wisdom guru, which knows only things and ideas which are not him or herself. They're just borrowed from others, and you just speak. It happens to me sometimes. I talk to some people and they speak out of reels. Yeah, or scrolling to Instagram and watching reels is the same thing like talking to them. And very often they use these kind of saying, you know how they say, they who? Oh man, who are they? Who's these they? How know how they say? What do you tell me? What's your position? What are your ideas, your conclusions, your experience? Tell me something about you. Do you know how they say? Go with the flow. Who said it? It's true sometimes, but yeah, they say it anyway. Let's get down to business. Today we are more on the rational. It's about thinking, and it's not that it's only rational. It's an art of being capable of thinking rational. Reductive. Let's look a little bit at the reductive. So look, don't look at all of it. Just look on the top. You have 2 plus 2 is 4, and then you have another one. Seed and the earth equals 3, more or less. So reductive is, well, if 2 plus 2 is 4, then probably if I can put a couple of things together, I could potentially get a 4. So now I have a 1. How can I make 1 into 2? I have 1 skill, but I need 2 skills because I want to get to 4. And sometimes we don't know what's the first 2 or the other 2. Sometimes we don't know what's the 4. And here's a little secret. If you don't really know that you are aiming at the right and the best outcome that you could aim, put all you've got together and see what does it give to you and how does it look, how does it make you feel, and is this something comfortable for your life or not? If you put the skill that you worked on, adjusting radio receivers, and that's the only skill you've got, and you maybe also know how to adjust microphones a little bit, put these 2 skills together and see if this is going to help you to build a life that you're looking for. And it's like, oh, no, it doesn't really make me kind of satisfied, fulfilled. I kind of want something else. I want to have a bigger family. Okay, you need better income, and also you have to learn communication skills, not just adjusting radio receivers. Okay, good. So it's good that I'm a technical guy, but also got to develop some communication skills. Good. So then I could what? Approach people and talk about my business so that I can offer my service to someone. Oh, that's great. So now you have a skill and another skill. And if you put together, you've got a 4, and that 4 is something more fulfilling than what you've got if you just put radio receivers and microphones together. You say, that's kind of not, but if I put this in communication, wow, that's amazing. So you look at it in this way, the reductive. So you've got a principle, you've got something that works. How can I replicate that principle into my process, into what I want to do? So look at the questions. Where do I want to go? In other words, what is my 4? I don't know about the 2 and the 2. Maybe I don't have a 2. I have a 0.01. That's amazing. That's all you've got. You think that's all you've got. You've got much more. But let's suppose that that's what you think, that that's all you've got. What is the 4 for me? What do I want to get done? If you don't put these questions for your mind is going to think about the input and is going to go into the trap of details to details, conclusions to conclusions, because you haven't brought a direction for your mind. By asking, what do I want to get and where do I want to go? What actions need to be taken? These are the questions that are going to educate and discipline your process of thinking in the reductive way. What resources does the process need? Do I have the resources? No. I want to record a video. I need a camera, I need a screen, I need a microphone, and most importantly, you've got something to say. And you also have the guts to think that you've got something to say. That's also not a simple stumbling block, because you've got to get some inner beliefs that you've got something to share from one perspective. From the other perspective, I got out of that situation. I would be so happy if more people could have also get out of that situation, and I'm not going to be quiet about it. If you put together, and one keeps you humble and the other one inspires you to move forward. Next question. How am I going to start? So these questions are reductive from many from many details. You want to get to something clear. From, I know the seed and the earth and the tree, if you put a seed and do this, but how can I replicate this for me? So from many things, you want to get to a strong, powerful question or direction or problem that you want to solve into your thinking. So you've got observational, but you've got it to bring it together to something clear and practical. So it would be a little bit more from wisdom to practical. But it can actually be both ways. It can be wisdom to practical and practical to wisdom in both scenarios, whether we talk about reductive and deductive. So the reductive is from, I've read so much, I know so much, I watched others doing. Now, where they want to get, What do I need for that? How am I going to start? Boom. And you've got the questions. When you've got these questions, then you're also going to change a little bit the input. And you'll say, oh, I thought I know many things, but they're not the things that I need right now. This is the power of bringing extreme clear questions to your mind so that your mind can work at its best. Bring such a powerful question that is going to challenge everything you know. And if you have the courage to pose the question to your mind, how can I get in half a year there? Then you'll realize how much you actually know where maybe you don't. And maybe you think there's like, I know so much about business. I know so much about sales. Have you done it? Have you tested it? No. So probably you don't know the right information that you need at the stage where you are right now. And it starts with the right question. A powerful question will help your mind to be linear and to give you scenarios, and will give you also insights about all the inputs that are open for the information that is allowed to come into your mind, into your system. What is the next? The process, the deductive way. The deductive way is, how can I, from the whole thing, bring it into details? I know that if I have clear ideas, and I know that this is the problem that I can solve for my customer, and I know that this would be, almost know that this would be the product, or maybe you know already because it worked for you, but you haven't built the whole facade of your business. You haven't built an offer for someone. Then you ask yourself small questions. Have I planted the seed? In other words, have I wrote down the idea that they want to implement or to make it happen? For example, so during this masterclass, I want to become better at thinking, but have I actually taken a piece of paper and a pen to take notes? Because probably I want to become better at thinking, and I read books and I watch masterclasses like this one, which I really know, believe and know is going to help you. If you're still watching here, for sure is going to help you. Have I put my energy into this experience, or this is another excuse that today I've done something good? I watched a masterclass that helped me a little bit, potentially could help you to think better, but you haven't allowed yourself to go through that experience, and you haven't planted the seed. You haven't taken notes. It's not the purpose to offend you, but is the purpose to remind you that probably you haven't paid enough attention to the details in your business, in your life, and you've got to pose these powerful questions and to be honest with them while you are answering. Is the environment right? The earth. Because a seed, if it's not on the earth, is under the sun, is on the surface of the earth, then it's not going to work. So maybe you have everything clear about where you want to get, but you haven't built the habits. And you're blaming yourself. Maybe you're blaming your endeavor, but you haven't done the work. So from formulas, from something concise and clear that it works, you've got to transform it into many steps for myself. So these are the two ways of processing the information, deductive and reductive. And here are the questions that are going to help you. For the practical to wisdom, am I reflecting on the experience? What are the conclusions of my experience? Reflecting on the conclusion is very good, but you've got to also come to a conclusion of that reflection that you do on the experience that you've been through. Am I building principles for myself? Principles that I can just reach them in my pocket, put them in place when I need, and so that I can move forward without overthinking and over-doubting it again and again. So I'm not going to read all the questions. Pause the video, do that for yourself, and bring the answers up. Bring those answers up. So I really hope that you're going to answer these questions right now, and you're not going to skip it, because this is going to allow you to experience a glimpse of what I'm inviting you to go through and to become better at. And you have to experience it. Just knowing, just remaining at the input stage is not going to allow you to experience it and see it from within. Because maybe at some things you're amazing, very good, and probably should stop thinking that you're not good at that specific skill. Probably you are, but you've got to see that for yourself. Moving forward, the output. So we have the input, the process, and the output. We're moving to the third stage, creative versus destructive. If I could have 1,000 times the outcome of my thinking, what would happen? Because you might say, well, I'm not destructive. I'm not thinking about how can I destroy my thinking or myself, or how can I run away from the desire that I have, or from that scenario that would make me fulfilled, that I'm working at my best and expressing my full potential. Well, I want to challenge you a little bit. Once I heard this idea that said, when we don't believe we're worthy of something, we're working very hard at getting rid of it. Wow. Wow. It changed the course of my life, the course of my life for a degree or two. When we within ourselves don't believe that we're worthy of it, we start in the process to add so many details. You remember the trap, right? You remember the trap. Details to details, conclusions to conclusions. So you've got the input, the process, and the output. And if in the input there is a mess, then in the process, in the middle is not working well, it's because mostly for these two reasons. From conclusions, you jump to more conclusions, or from details that you've got that are supposed to give you more clarity, you jump to even more details. So here, these are the two traps: conclusions to conclusions, details to details. How it should work: conclusions to details. Once this is the conclusion, what are the details that are going to allow me to fulfill or to apply that conclusion and see if does it work or not? Or conclusions to details, or details to conclusions. I've done this, I've done that, I've done this, I've done that, I've tested this, I've tested that. What's the conclusion? Is this something I want to keep or not? Right? So you know now those two traps of the worst thinking process. Now you might say, I'm not into the destructive way of thinking. That's not something that I look. Okay, but still sometimes we might. And we're going to reveal together, is this the case or not? Because sometimes it is. So this question can already introduce you to this filter. Whatever you were thinking today about, try to imagine the average thought, or the average intensity, or the average quality of my thoughts. If I could imaginarily multiply by 1,000 times, what would happen? Because it's saying, a little bit of being negative and self-doubt, it's not so bad, it's okay, it's all right. Yes, maybe not. Because it might seem to you that's a little bit. But I talk to people that sometimes they're so negative, they wake up in the morning, my gosh, such a bad day, and it's so hot, and then I'm saying, wow, but yeah, yesterday was fresh, was raining, and they say, yeah, oh my gosh, that rain yesterday was so intense. However you switch, wherever you go, they always have something negative to say about. And let's not remember here, I'm going to go a little bit away, then we're going to come back. About negative people, what you want to remind to yourself about negative people, that your attention to them is their oxygen. The more attention you pay to them, the more oxygen they have. Even if you leave them and say, oh, I paid attention to you enough, 5 minutes. You don't say it, but you say, but I gotta go. They're happy. They're happy because you gave them 5 minutes. You give them 10 seconds. They're happy of it. So Do you want to get rid of negative people? Because let's not confuse it with supporting someone for a period of time, helping someone and serving one. That's not the case. We talk here about a lifestyle. Because look about this, about negative people want to tell you. Imagine you are a guest in my house and the toilet is broken and it's smelling, like what? Right? Okay. So you can once say like, oh, hey, you've got problems. Like, yeah, I know I've got this problem. You come second time, it's like, hey, oh, it's smelling. Like, yeah, I know I have this problem. Have you done something? No, I just have this problem. Okay. Boom. Third, fourth time. You're not going to come for the fifth time because, bro, you got a problem in your house. You got to adjust that it stinks. And you'll say, yeah, I know I have this problem. Well, you don't have a problem. You have a huge transformation and you've got to that level where you say you've got a problem, but actually don't believe you've got a problem. You like that problem because it allows you not to do something else to do something else. So that's not, I've got a problem. I like being in this way. So that's why with the negative people, they're negative for a week, for 2 weeks, for a month, for 2 months. Have you done something? No, I've got this problem. I'm negative. No, you're not negative. You're using it as an excuse so that you're feeding your negativity with the attention that I and you give to them. And that's a huge, huge difference. So go and start doing solve the problem. And if you need help, I'm going to run and help you to solve that problem. But not when you get to that complacency with the problem because you use it as an excuse. That's not the case. Go and do some, you got to do something. But that's not that we have to accept just because they like it. No, you like it, keep it for yourself. That's a difference. So that's why with the creative and the destructive, sometimes we tell to ourselves, hey, it's okay if it stinks a little bit during the day, multiply it by 1,000 times and you'll see what you've got. Because 1,000 times, that's 1,000 days. That's 3 years. So if you could have the same thinking style for the next 3 years, the same style that you've got today, are these going to be 3 years of fulfillment, growth, and work? Or is this, there are going to be 3 years of sting and getting worse? Because every day is a piece of life. So how you live one day, that's how you're probably gonna live the future. If you agree to it and if you say, this is it, and that's okay, then that's how it is going to be, if not worse. So that's why if you might say for yourself, I'm not destructive, look at yourself, the quality of your thoughts, of the quality of the process that you are going through. And that is going to, because it's like zooming, it's like multiplying it 1,000x, and like, oh, half an hour a day, I'm in constant self-doubt. Why? Creative and destructive. The creative output is goals. What are the goals? So you're directing your process thinking process towards goals, towards a mission. I'm on a mission to, next one, a cause. You've got a cause that is near and dear to your heart, and that's the cause you're fighting. That's what you want to bring. That's what the value that you want to bring in the world. A betterment process. Like, I don't know the mission yet. I don't know what is my specific goal in half a year or a year, but I know that I've got to work on in improving my communication skill. That's great. Work on that. So betterment, working on something, getting better at something for a period of time. Probably sometimes it happens. That's all we've got. And that's amazing. Then your input and your thinking process, the middle, are going to be aligned with the output, and the output in this case is betterment, growth. I want to launch. I don't know how. I want to grow my business, but I don't know how. I have only this product. But if you're looking for growth, okay, what's the specific growth that I'm looking for? They want to serve more people. They want to increase the salary for my team that works for me because I really care for them and I can. So if I can be a little bit more creative, I can help my team increase the salary for my team. That would be so amazing. How can I do that? So that this whole team is also motivated, not only inspired, but also motivated, and they change the quality of their lives. How can I do that? Whoa! Now I'm going to be so creative. When you have 2 kids or 3 kids, every father can tell you now, woohoo, you become very creative. Why? Because we know we are made in God's image. And we forget about this big truth. we assume that we just have these doubts and problems and things and thinking, and I lack creativity, I lack strategy. Are you sure? Are you sure there's missing a piece? We're just misusing those which you already have. We're made in God's image. We've got everything we need in order to create the best outcome, serving others, pleasing God, and becoming better at what we do. So we've got to be creative. Why do we have creativity? Not just so we can go around and say, I'm creative. Are you? No, be creative. And if you are creative, you're going to be creative. Why do we have this? So that we can be creative. Not just stuck to one complaint and to one model of thinking. And when we're looking at this kind of outcome, how can I be more in God's image? Serving others, helping others, doing my best for myself so that I can improve the world and I can myself better and I can grow and I can alleviate that problem that exists in the world so that I can be part of this movement, being on my mission, achieving my goals. This is the creative outcome. Don't look at this might happen, that might happen. Yeah, but how can I get to that kind of output? I want to grow my business to $1 million in 3 months, or I want in a year, or maybe in 3 years, or maybe you have other kind of desires. How can I be more in God's image? And by that, I mean, how can I put all I've got to work so that I can work more and better? That's creative. Rather than dancing hand in hand with busyness. I'm busy. That's destructive. Rather than being creative, you do so much work, but you just use it as an excuse to be busy. Or ego. And another here for the ego. Somebody asked me a couple of days ago, how can I be sure that this is not for my ego and it's for something great? Then ask yourself the same question that I used a couple of minutes ago. If you could achieve 1,000 times more in what you are working on, the output that you're going to have at the end of the week or the month or the 3 months or semester, on one hand, it is the purpose for the world. And on the other hand, how important am I going to feel? If this one will get much bigger and this smaller or the same, probably you are towards your ego. If you become smaller in your eyes, saying, I can do much more and I could be some more creative, but how can I? Because I didn't. But the results are getting even bigger. You are definitely on the right path. Asking this question, who gets the reward? Who gets the reward? So that you make sure that this is not only for you or mostly for you. Because we are all selfish. If we say, we are all selfish. We want this, we want a better quality of life. And that's also great. Because by being better and earning more and being a better person, you bring so much light into the world for family, for neighbors, for everyone around. That's in the end also that has a very noble end goal. On the right side, business ego, benefits, advantage, prevalence, self-centered. This is the destructive. Why is it destructive? Because you also might get rich, and you'll get rich, but you'll be unhappy. Not because you're rich, but because you sacrificed everything while you're getting rich. And that's not only about getting rich. That's also for everything else. If you want more, what you want to get more than who you're going to serve along the way, you're going to get it. You might get it and be very unhappy and empty within. Why? Because along the way, you've became so self-centered, only me, only me, only me, and you forgot about everything else. Then what do you feel? You feel empty within, and you can't even enjoy what you have achieved. And along the way, I can assure you that most of unhappy people, they don't become unhappy in just 1 second. It's not that they don't achieve their goal now, because achieving goal is a process. it happened along the way. The output was destructive because it was not towards building betterment for a cause, for a mission, for goals, working as you never forget that you are made in God's image, but you become self-centered. So actually, if you can take line by line, and you can look now on the screen, goals, business, mission, ego, cause, benefits, betterment, advantage, growth, prevalence, God's image, self-centered. I've connected them. I haven't shown them the connection. In the next slide, no. But I've put them exactly as I have observed them in my work, helping others and solving these problems for myself. And when I started to move them one by one, because I started 99.9 on the destructive. And step by step, one day at a time, one month at a time, one goal at a time, one skill at a time, moving. And the better you become at moving from one activity, one thinking process from one side towards the other, on the other side of the river, the faster you move them, because then you become more powerful at managing, at changing. And remember, we began this video at the beginning. If you progress allows you to get where you want to get, and that requires change. And if you can't change your mind, then there's no progress. And there's no progress, you can't get things done. That's why you really have to start with the end. From being destructive or thinking destructively. Because all the self-doubt, what's all the self-doubt? It's because you're focused too much on the ego. You're not focused on your mission. That's why you're doubting yourself. Why? Because can I see myself as big and self-important as I think I should? Oh my gosh, probably not. I doubt myself. But if you focus on your mission, you say, how can I support this mission a little bit more? Oh, I can do this today. Do you doubt yourself? No, I know I can do this little, but I'm going to do it because I'm part of that mission. You know your goals. So you're not just busy. Oh, I'm in a business. I'm an entrepreneur. How much you make? I don't know. You know, it's not a lot. Because you find more pleasure into being busier than others and in identifying yourself with those who are very busy, so that you kind of can feel better about yourself rather than getting things done, achieving your goals. So as long as you're focused on your self-importance rather than on your self-significance, here is one great, amazing, powerful tool that changed my life and changed everybody's life that paid attention to this one. Self-importance versus self-significance. Self-importance, how important can I see myself? Important, very self-important. And self-significant is how important are you for others? Because if you are just for yourself, you're important to yourself, nothing changes. If you're out of the mission, out of the team, out of the business, nothing changes. That's your self-importance, and you're important for yourself. But self-significance is when you're so important for others that without you, people won't have the greatest leader that they could have had, or they wouldn't have the greatest supporter as you, or the cause wouldn't move forward. The mission couldn't be accomplished because you are out of the game. That's being significant rather than being self-important. You want to clear the 90% of your problems in your business as a leader. Switch your focus from self-importance to self-significance. Your life is never going to be the same again. This is a law that works and will always work. Do it, change your life, and grow maintaining the same direction. So back to the slides. Here is the output that we want to look. Creative versus destructive. So what you've got, before we wrap it up, it's an hour and something. Self-significance versus self-importance. How can I benefit from their trust is the question that every self-centered, selfish person, extreme selfish person has, even leaders, entrepreneurs. How can I benefit from my clients' trust, from my workers, from my team? How can I benefit? And how very significant world-changing leaders and people and entrepreneurs, how can they benefit from my contribution? How can they benefit from my contribution? This is the question that needs to be running morning to night, so that you can start to look towards a creative output, not a destructive output, a creative focused on greatness, on goals, on mission, on your vision, being and behaving as being created in God's image, rather than being self-centered, all for your ego, all for yourself, being extremely focused on your self-importance rather than on your self-significance. This switch is going to change the whole thinking process. The one is, how can I benefit from their trust? It's present, but leave it behind. How can they benefit from my contribution? This is going to make you great, because everybody can be great, and many people are. And even if we are a little bit great, we can become even greater. The input, intentional versus habitual. And the process, you remember, wisdom to practical, practical to wisdom. And always use both in the process. Sometimes wisdom to practical, sometimes practical to wisdom. At the output, self-significance versus self-importance. It's enough to switch from self-importance to self-significance. And the output that you're going to be looking for is going to be proactive, and you're going to automatically use in the process wisdom to practical and practical to wisdom. When you look for that creative, for that creative way of thinking. And all that is going to change the way you manage your input. Because when you look for this greatness in your output, and here is where you begin. If you're watching this masterclass right now, please comment a thumb up or a thank you or a fire emoji. Put a fire emoji and say a word. Because if you're looking here, here's the best secret of this whole masterclass. You start with the end, not with the beginning. What's the greatest output I'm looking for? Then how should I process wisdom to practical, practical to wisdom? What's the input that I've got to build so that I will allow me to process and to get things done? This is the secret. What's the greatest? How am I going to process it? Where do I take the input? If I have it within, I put it to work. If I don't have it yet, I build it. If I can't have it and it will take too much time to develop it, bring others. Look at others. Learn, read faster. So here is the whole framework that I shared with you. The input, the process, the output. And you remember the OCD, our version of OCD, the Exploraself OCD, not the medical OCD. Observe the players. Change the rules. D, design the outcome. So design, change the rules, observe the players, and educate the players, the input, in such a way so that the game can go on. At Exploraself, we're all about self-mastery, self-growth, and self-leadership. For entrepreneurs, ambitious individuals, leaders, those who aspire to become better leaders. Maybe you have a small team, maybe you're by yourself in your team and you're looking for guidance. How can I start managing my mindset in such a way that I can start leading rather than being so much focused? Because sometimes it happens that for years you are working by yourself. I know how it is that you just can't get out of that kind of mindset and start delegating things and managing and leading others, not just managing the process and getting out of that. And that's not easy, because your mind was for years, through doubts and pain and hard work, was educated to work in that kind of the framework, and it's hard to get out. If you need help with that, here I am, Alexandr. I'm ready to serve you and to help you to make that shift and bring those questions, those perspectives that are going to allow you to grow, be creative, and to be as we are supposed to be, created in God's image, being creative, growing, sharing, giving to others, and being significant rather than important for ourselves. And that starts with self-mastery, with self-growth and self-leadership, so then we can start leading also others. A program that you can access right now if you go to exploraselfmba.com is Hack Your Mind Before It Hacks You. Is another perspective of how to start controlling your mind, and that is going to enrich and empower your toolkit, your mindset, so that you can start leading your life rather than boiling yourself into all these players that want to confuse you, and rather than losing the game, you can change the rules, get the output that you're looking for, and increase the quality of your life and achieving those goals and getting things done. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for your attention. Wish you to be blessed by the best, succeed, grow, be creative, and change the world one action at a time, one day at a time. You and me can do it, and we have to keep doing it. See you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.